So as you're all probably aware, BlizzCon 2017 brought us two pretty big World of Warcraft announcements. The first being the next expansion called Battle for Azeroth, and the second but most surprising one being Blizzard finally working on an official classic server. I have to admit, both of these announcements really shocked me when I first heard about them. I knew there'd be a new expansion announcement, but I expected it to be Void Lord themed, which I wasn't very excited about as I'm kinda bored of all of the alien themed stuff. But with Battle for Azeroth, it's back to the core of what made WoW popular in the first place, that feeling of Alliance versus Horde, which I've really missed. Also, I have to say, that Battle for Azeroth CGI cinematic was fucking awesome. Easily my favourite one they've made so far. It gave me feels, despite not playing the game for a year prior, so props on that. When it came to the classic server announcement, I honestly couldn't believe it. I was in complete shock and overwhelmingly happy that this is actually happening. We've had so many BlizzCons where the question has been asked, please Blizzard, can we have a classic version of WoW? And those questions have always been shut down very quickly.
You think you do, but you don't.
And I always thought if it was ever going to be announced, it'd be at last year's BlizzCon after so many people petitioned for it to happen. After that, I kinda lost hope and accepted that an official classic server would probably never be a thing. But I guess Blizzard had a change of heart, and I'm really glad they did. I actually resubbed to WoW and started playing again after these announcements were made, as for the first time since I can remember, I'm actually looking forward to the future of the game. Even if the next expansion turns out to be really bad, at least I know there'll be a classic version of the game that I've already had a taste of from private servers that I know I'll enjoy, guaranteed. I'm pretty sure I'm also going to be making some YouTube content for Vanilla WoW too, as it was a completely different game back then, and I think there's a lot of fun and potential content to be had, so that's something I'm excited for. I'm thinking of making a Journey to Level Cap series when Classic launches, in which I try to die the least amount of times I can, and edit those videos down to just the best parts, kinda how I did my Iron Man challenges back in the day. Only problem is I can't figure out what class I want to play. I'm definitely gonna roll Horde on a PvP server, but I'm torn between playing Mage, Warrior, or Rogue. I'll also need to figure out which professions are best too, because that was much more of an important part of the game back in vanilla compared to today. I guess I'll need to do some research to see which suits me best. As for how they actually do Classic WoW, I hope they go down the route of progression servers. So initially they release Vanilla WoW, then maybe 16 months later they release the Burning Crusade, but instead of forcing everyone over to the TBC server, you're able to copy your vanilla character over to the new one, whilst still having your max level vanilla character on a vanilla server. That way people would have the choice to play both Vanilla and Burning Crusade Classic servers at the same time. A lot of people have also been very vocal that they want vanilla servers, but with bug fixes, class balancing, and a few quality of life things from the normal version of WoW. Personally, I really don't want this. Part of what made vanilla special was how inconvenient, imbalanced, and rough around the edges it was. If too many changes were made, it wouldn't really be an authentic vanilla experience. I'm sure Blizzard knows that though, and I doubt they'll change too much, if anything. But overall, when it comes to WoW Classic, I'm just really excited to jump in and start that long journey to level 60. No dungeon finder, no LFR, class-specific quest lines, mobs actually being dangerous, dying whilst leveling, having to group up with people to take down elites, group questing, professions being super important, raid attunements, old Altaric Valley, 40-man raiding, and that feeling of just being a normal adventurer out in the world instead of being that special snowflake hero of Azeroth. I honestly can't wait. Moving on to the features announced in Battle for Azeroth, I'm actually looking forward to exploring the new continents of TIRAS and Zandalar. I'm glad the expansion is set here, as these are some of the few places left on Azeroth with lore significance that weren't in the game. It's also interesting how the Horde start on one continent and the Alliance on the other, before swapping over later in the leveling. Hopefully it will give a more replayable feeling to the leveling, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. Something I was actually surprised about about was Blizzard raising the level cap to 120. I thought by now they'd have thought of some kind of alternative progression path without having to raise the level even more, but I guess not. It just sounds kind of stupid to say, I'm level 120 by the way. Certainly a bit off-putting for new players. Plundering of Uncharted Islands. From what I understand, this is going to be the first procedurally generated content ever added to WoW. It's basically a 3-player game mode in which role doesn't matter, and is supposed to feel like a different experience every time. The goal is to collect a resource called Azerite, which drops from mobs, can be gathered from nodes, obtained via random quests, as well as random events. Whilst you're plundering these islands, 3 advanced AI from the opposite faction will compete against you to obtain Azerite for themselves. There's also going to be 4 different difficulty options: normal, heroic, mythic, and PvP. Overall, I think this is quite an interesting feature, and my only hope is that it doesn't start feeling stale too quickly. Personally, the PvP mode sounds like the most fun to me, as it's a great mix of PvP and PvE content, basically PvPvE. Aside from that, another thing I'm happy with about the new expansion is Blizzard finally doing another stat and number squish. This was something that I really wanted for World of Warcraft Legion, as I hate seeing numbers that are just so large they become meaningless. So I'm really glad to see this being toned down a bit. Warfronts, another new feature being added to the Battle of Azeroth. This is a 20-player PvE mode versus NPCs that combines the RTS elements of Warcraft 3 with WoW's character perspective. You'll need to build structures, research upgrades, and lead troops in a mode that's really trying to reinforce that feeling of all-out war. Think of it as Warcraft 3 with you controlling the hero unit but in a third-person perspective. I personally think this mode will be super fun when the expansion first launches, but over time I'm worried that there'll just be one cookie-cutter way of winning, with the same build order and players just going through the motions rather than making any strategic decisions, but I really hope I'm wrong here. PvP and PvE servers will also be a thing of the past soon. The new expansion hopes to, quote, make world PvP great again by allowing players of any server to opt into PvP via the toggle option. You can only do this inside of a city, and in doing so your character will be phased over to a PvP server where you will only see other players that want to PvP. On top of that, to compensate PvP players for a less efficient leveling experience, you're also going to get bonuses, most likely more XP and reputation gain. This is a change that I'm really looking forward to. When it comes to MMOs, I'm way more into PvP than PvE. I just think it gives you many more unique encounters to your gameplay and helps break up the grind, so for me this is a very welcome change. 6 new sub-races will also be added in the new expansion. The Alliance get Void Elves, Dark Iron Dwarves and Lightforged Draenei, and the Horde get the Nightborn, High Mountain Tauren and Zandalari Trolls. Each of these are obtained through a quest line once you reach max level. I'm not really too hyped about this feature as it's only really cosmetic, but I guess it's cool that you need to unlock them through gameplay as opposed to just logging in and having them be available right away. The artifact weapon you used throughout WoW Legion will not pass over into the Battle for Azeroth. Instead, you're going to get an artifact neck piece which you empower through a resource called Azerite. Personally, don't really care too much for this feature, it just seems like an excuse to give us a resource to grind out. Something I am happy to hear though, is that Blizzard are finally getting rid of that god-awful legendary system that Legion had, and apparently it won't be a thing in the new expansion. Very glad to hear that indeed. The final thing worth mentioning about Battle for Azeroth is that the old WoW zones will also receive a form of level scaling in the form of level brackets. So Elwyn Forest 1 to 20, Outlander Northrend both 60 to 80, and so on. This is really nice for new players as they won't outlevel a zone so fast before finishing the story, and it obviously gives more flexibility to the initial leveling up process, which is always a good thing. Overall, I'm very excited to create content and play the official Blizzard Classic server, and I'm also looking forward to checking out the new expansion, Battle for Azeroth. I wouldn't say I'm as hyped for it as previous WoW expansions, as I only really jump into the game from time to time and wouldn't really describe myself as a die-hard WoW player anymore, but regardless, I am interested, and I've actually been having some fun streaming Legion stuff after a year-long WoW break too recently, so I guess Blizzard must have done something right to give me that itch again, despite how temporary that may turn out to be. But those are my thoughts on WoW Classic and the Battle for Azeroth, guys. I'd love to hear your thoughts on them both in the comments below, and yes, I am back to YouTube and streaming from now on. I've finally finished my move to the Netherlands, and I'm pretty much settled now, so hopefully more regular content to come. But thanks for watching, I hope you all have a great day, and I'll see you again really soon.